لا صافي كون هاني دابا راه بيدي ولا
معالي السيدة فيكتوريا نولاند نائبة كاتب الدولة الأمريكي للشؤون السياسية، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، السيدات والسادة، أود بداية أن أعرب لكم عن ترحيب المملكة المغربية بكم ضيوفا أعزاء في رحابها، متمنيا لكم طيب المقام في مدينة مراكش بمناسبة هذا الاجتماع الوزاري للتحالف الدولي لهزيمة داعش، الأول من نوعه الذي ينعقد فوق أرض إفريقيا. إن تنظيم هذا الاجتماع في مراكش الغنية بتاريخها وتنوعها الثقافي والحضاري والمصنفة تراثا للإنسانية من طرف اليونسكو رسالة بليغة إلى العالم في زمن تنامت فيه وثائر التهديد والأخطار وتدمير المعالم التراثية من قبل كيانات وتنظيمات تحمل إيديولوجيات إرهابية وإقصائية. باحتضانها لهذا الاجتماع الدولي تؤكد مراكش مركزها كعاصمة مؤثرة للعمل المتعدد الأطراف، لها بصمة راسخة في رسم معالم عالم مستقر ومزدهر وأكثر أمنا وإنصافا. ففي كل مرة شكلت اللقاءات الدولية التي احتضنتها مراكش حدثا مفصليا أفضى إلى تقدم نوعي، ولنا في ذلك أن نذكر على سبيل المثال لا الحصر المؤتمر التأسيسي لمنظمة التجارة العالمية سنة 1994، مؤتمري الدول الأطراف في اتفاقية الأمم المتحدة بشأن التغيير المناخي كوب 7 سنة 2001 وكوب 22 سنة 2016، وكذا المؤتمر الحكومي بشأن الاتفاق العالمي من أجل الهجرة الآمنة والمنظمة سنة 2018. وهذه النجاحات إنما هي أيضا ثمرة تجربة خصبة راكمتها مراكش، كما هي اليوم نتيجة لتعبئة قوية وشاملة. واسمحوا لي أن أتقدم من هذا المنبر بكل الشكر والتقدير للسلطات المحلية والأطقم الفنية على اختلاف اختصاصاتها ورجال السلطة والأمن والقوات العمومية وكل من شارك في تنظيم هذا الاجتماع. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my words of appreciation go out to all of you who answered present for this important and timely meeting. And my words of sympathy to my dear friend and colleague, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who was unable to make the trip to Morocco. We had planned to meet again in Marrakech, but COVID-19 decided otherwise. I would like to send him my greetings and best wishes for a speedy and full recovery. I would like to commend the central role of Secretary Blinken in conceiving and bringing to life the Marrakech edition of the Global Coalition. I'm sure, like all of us, Secretary Blinken has the same ambition to see the results of these meetings sustained over time and contribute to ensure its successful follow-up. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, despite 2 challenging years due to the pandemic, our global coalition has managed to increase and intensify its actions tailored to warding off the threat of terrorism. Our coalition has also managed to widen, and I would like here to welcome Benin, who joins us today as the 85th member of the Global Coalition. The unprecedented number of countries from Africa and Asia participating in this meeting as observers is another force multiplier in achieving this objective. This echoes the fact that our meeting marks a substantive evolution of the coalition's strategic orientation, building on 3 key trends. Firstly, the consolidation of Daesh territorial defeat in the Middle East allows us to direct more support towards national capacity building in the region. Secondly, stabilization, civilian-led capacity building, and strategic communication now feature prominently in all aspects of the coalition's commitment to eradicate Daesh. And finally, the coalition will be able to prioritize its response to the evolving terrorist threats in other regions in the world based on an inclusive approach that supports existing national and sub-regional mechanisms. Despite these positive developments, cautious optimism has also been one of our guiding principles, and rightly so. We remain lucid on the state of the ISIS threat, which has not diminished. Indeed, colleagues, ISIS holds the infamous record of becoming the world's deadliest terrorist group in 2021. Africa, meanwhile, has become its main target, suffering 41% of all ISIS attacks worldwide. Since our coalition is focusing its first session on Africa, let me share with you some facts on the state of the threat on our African continent. Compared to the pre-pandemic period, violence has increased on the continent with a 40 to 60% rise in terms of fatalities and attacks. In 2021, Sub-Saharan Africa accounted for 48% of global terrorist deaths. The Sahel is home to the world's fastest growing and most deadly terrorist groups. Deaths in the Sahel region account for 35% of global terrorist deaths in 2021, compared with just 1% in 2007. West Africa and the Sahel are the most impacted regions in Africa, with more than 1.5 million persons internally displaced due to the ongoing confrontations. During the last decade, the economic impact of terrorism cost the continent a total loss of $170 billion, an amount lost to the economic and social development efforts of our region. And today, 27 terrorist entities based in Africa are registered on the UN Security Council sanction list. This is a clear indicator of their connections to major global terrorist groups. The terrorist threat in Africa has now reached the Atlantic coast and its shipping routes. Links between terrorism and piracy appeared in the Gulf of Guinea as seen in the Horn of Africa. Terrorist groups are also seeking control of natural resources. Furthermore, a worrying trend has been on the rise. That is the terrorism-separatism nexus. The collusion against the sovereignty and stability of states and the convergence of financial, tactical, and operational means creates an objective alliance between terrorist and separatist groups. This has been confirmed by the increasing number of individuals crossing from separatist to terrorist groups and vice versa. In fact, separatism and terrorism are very often two sides of the same coin. Those who finance, shelter, support, and weaponize separatism are actually contributing to spread terrorism and further compromise regional peace and security. Let us not be mistaken. Encouraging separatism means complicity with terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, our meeting creates high hopes and expectations, echoed by the strong participation of African countries, whether members or observers of the global coalition. Our discussions should therefore be an opportunity to, first, express active solidarity to Africa in the fight against the threat posed by Daesh. Second, promote African states' ownership of efficient counter-terrorist policies and strategies. And third, support existing national and sub-regional initiatives such as those of ECOWAS. Ladies and gentlemen, in just a few days, Morocco will mark the sad commemoration of the Casablanca terrorist attacks of May the 16th, 2003. Since these attacks on its soil and people, the kingdom, in line with the vision of His Majesty King Mohammed VI, has put in place an efficient, multidimensional, and holistic strategy to combat terrorism and violent extremism. This effort enabled Morocco to dismantle more than 210 terrorist cells since 2002, amongst other achievements. The best practices achieved by Morocco's security services, as well as the kingdom's outstanding approach in the field of de-radicalization, also offer a tested toolbox for our long-standing engagement with African brotherly countries facing the evolving threat of terrorism. This approach reflects a deep belief in African own capabilities to turn the tide, as underlined by His Majesty King Mohammed VI before the 29th Summit of the African Union. I quote, "I have always firmly believed that Africa can turn the challenges it is facing into genuine prospects for development and stability." End of quote. Our shared assessment of the dangerous rise of terrorist threat in Africa has led to the emergence of a tailored approach of the coalition support to the African continent. This approach is embodied by the Africa Focus Group, co-led by the United States, Italy, Niger, and Morocco, which met yesterday here in Marrakech. Morocco's chairmanship of the group provides an additional platform for the kingdom to share experience learned from its holistic and integrated counter-terrorism strategy developed under the leadership of His Majesty King Mohammed VI. In response to global threats such as terrorism, it is Morocco's doctrine to advocate for multilateralism, especially one that promotes solidarity, ownership, and inclusiveness through intelligence sharing, capacity building, and training of religious leaders. As such, we believe that the recent inauguration in Rabat of the UN OCT Program Office for City and Training in Africa offers a way forward that could further contribute to the coalition's capacity building efforts. This UN office, based in Rabat, is indeed an important addition to the city structures in Africa, as it offers capacity building programs to countries on the continent in several key specialized areas. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we should be mindful of the high expectations created by our meeting today, just as we are conscious of the challenges at stake. Our wish is that the Marrakech meeting will inspire the global coalition so as to deliver concrete support that meets the legitimate aspiration of our African partners and honors the duty of solidarity Africa deserves. Thank you for your attention.
Good morning. On behalf of Secretary Blinken, who very much regrets that he is not able to be here with you today, I want to join Minister Burita in welcoming everyone, with a special welcome to the coalition's newest member, Benin. I would also like to especially thank our Moroccan hosts, and particularly Minister Burita, who, as he said, planned this event with Secretary Blinken when he visited Morocco a month ago, and to thank you for all that you've done to bring this event together in beautiful Marrakech. We have come together with a shared commitment to ensure the enduring defeat of ISIS in Iraq and Syria, across the African continent, and throughout the world. Our work has expanded from the liberation of territory seized by ISIS in Iraq and Syria to identifying regions across the globe that are becoming breeding grounds for terrorist groups and addressing the root causes. In sessions throughout the day, we will be assessing the work that the coalition and individual members have done over the last year in Iraq and Syria, in Africa, and in the Afghanistan region to identify the gaps that we need to address. Over the last several years, ISIS has been considerably weakened in Iraq and Syria, but it remains a threat, seeking any opportunity to reconstitute itself. In January this year, the ISIS attack on a detention facility in Hasaka in northeast Syria was a reminder of their intent and a wake-up call about how untenable the current situation remains in northeast Syria. From the need for increased humanitarian services for the nearly 60,000 people in Al-Hol camp, to developing appropriate solutions for youth in detention, to improving the security solutions for the thousands of terrorist fighters and family members awaiting repatriation to their home countries, there is much more work to be done by members of this coalition. We need to sustain our focus on stabilization efforts in Iraq and Syria to address the underlying issues that have allowed ISIS to recruit and exploit local grievances. This year, we're seeking to raise $700 million for critical stabilization activities in communities liberated from ISIS control in Iraq and Syria, $350 million for Iraq and $350 million for Syria. Over the past year alone, the United States has provided more than $45 million in stabilization assistance for northeast Syria and over $60 million for Iraq. And we urge other donors to increase your support. We also recognize that stabilization funding alone is insufficient to help communities rebuild from the scourge of ISIS. And for that reason, the United States intends in the next few days to issue a general license to facilitate private economic investment activity in non-regime held areas liberated from ISIS in Syria to bring in more income to help these communities to rebuild and recover. At the same time as we're preventing the resurgence of ISIS in Iraq and Syria, we must remain vigilant to the continued threat ISIS poses elsewhere in the world, especially here on the African continent. Just last weekend, ISIS claimed responsibility for an attack in the Sinai Peninsula that killed 17 Egyptian soldiers. The United States condemns this attack, and we express our condolences to the families of those who lost loved ones. From the states of the Sahel, where the number of terrorist incidents grew by 43% between 2018 and 2021, to the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Mozambique, we saw nearly 500 ISIS terrorist incidents in 2021, resulting in the deaths of more than 2,900 people across Africa. ISIS and other terrorist groups have increased their influence and their capability in the Sahel. An al-Qaeda affiliate, JNIM, is threatening the coastal states of West Africa. The United States is committed to working with our partners in West Africa to confront the challenges that have allowed this group to flourish, among them the lack of state legitimacy, persistent rights violations, and food insecurity. As Minister Burita said, we must stay in solidarity with our African partners. ISIS and other terrorist groups frequently style themselves as alternatives to the state, and so it is critical that we work with our partners to increase state capacity to provide services and security to their people. In response to this and other security threats, the United States will spend over $119 million in new assistance in sub-Saharan Africa to improve the capabilities of civilian, law enforcement, and judiciary authorities to disrupt, apprehend, prosecute, and convict terrorists across the continent. As we all know, counterterrorism approaches that are not aligned with respect for human rights and the rule of law are more likely to fuel terrorism and extremism and conflict than to stamp them out. In South and Central Asia, we've also seen ISIS Khorasan pose an increasingly lethal threat to the populations of those countries, including a March 4th suicide attack on a Shia mosque in Peshawar, Pakistan, that killed more than 60 people, injured another 200, along with claimed rocket attacks against Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. The United States is committed to providing counterterrorism and border security assistance to our partners in Central Asia to help them strengthen their capabilities to confront these threats. And we urge other members of this coalition to join us in building their capacity to confront ISIS-K. Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for your continued commitment to this important work, to the work that we will do together over the course of this conference and over the year ahead. Thank you.